Now I would like to discuss the difference between traditional therapy and IntraAwareness Coach. So remember back to the video that we just recorded, we just filmed, and the last video in the series where we talked about the difference between a life coach and an IntraAwareness Coach. I'll remind you one more time that this is my experience. This does not fit 100% of therapists, counselors, psychologists, but it does fit the majority in my experience. When I was going through my international coaching school in my early mid-20s, I was really surprised to discover I was the youngest student in there and I had only a semester of psychology when I went through school. And both teachers had their master's in psychology. There was people that had their PhDs in psychology, and they were receiving this coaching, this international coaching tools and techniques. And I was surprised that they were there and they were saying, Jeremiah, like in traditional therapy in the school system, they don't really teach you how to do or what to do. Now, this is from their experience. Again, I'm not speaking for 100%. In my experience, in 23 years, this is the majority. And there's different strokes for different folks. So here's what we're going to get into. Traditional therapy, a lot of times will focus on the problems. And you see it in movies, maybe you've had an experience of it where going to therapy and like, well, what are you feeling, right? Like with the problem. So why do you feel that way? Right off the bat, that's a huge difference. We don't say, why do you feel that way very often? Why do you think that's happening? The reason why we don't say why very much is because your why isn't necessarily real or the truth. Your why is a belief. It's an internal representation. It's one point of view out of an infinite points of views, and you didn't have your why do you feel that way before you felt that way, and you won't have it after you feel the way. So a lot of times, essentially, we don't say, well, why do you feel that way? Especially if you're in a less than positive emotional state, because it might root it and anchor it down deeper. So instead of saying, why do you feel that way? I might say something like in our coaching sessions, like, well, how long have you felt that way? Because now we start getting into the location, where maybe the root cause, where it started. Now, feeling this way, is it a problem for you? So it goes back into maybe the motivation. We're starting to actually move it within the mind. So there's just a lot of different ways. But we focus more on the outcome and the goal. Of course, you're welcome to share your problems. We just don't stay there for very long. And we definitely don't have clients that have the same problem for years and years and decades. Certain therapies, a lot of therapies do, because they might be talk therapy and talking about things at maybe the conscious level, the conscious mind, but doesn't necessarily get to the root cause. Again, I've had people that have seen therapists and they've had great results. The majority of the people, though, that I find therapy didn't work for them. And then they look for alternative sources, maybe traditional life coaching or healers. But we're all about systematic, technical results. And we want to focus on the outcome, what you're going to get once you achieve your goals. So it's an emotional connection with those goals. And that's really one of the big difference. Traditional therapy might have more theories. What do I mean by theories? Well, maybe they studied Carl Jung, maybe they studied Freud. Maybe they studied these other people that did great things and had great results, and then try to have a theory and then start to work with people. And based off of what you're saying, I think I'm going to use this theory and things like that. Again, I'm not speaking for everyone. This is just my experience. A little bit different here. We're systematic change work. What is systematic change work? Very systematic. We ask you a question. You give us information. Not only will your words give us information, but your tonality, your body language. There's so much going on. And if you watch future videos, you're going to get a little bit of sneak peek of what we're looking for. So systematic change work is very systematically, we're looking to get to the root cause. We always have the goal in mind to get to the root cause and relieve you from it. Maybe that's completely getting rid of it. Maybe that's upgrading something. Maybe that's a different psychological part that's stunted and we need to grow up. We don't know until we get there, but it's very systematic, and the change work is experiential. It's not that you have to believe it. It's not that you actually have an experience inside and different results in your life. A lot of times in traditional therapy, they'll focus on stories. The stories, some people are external processors, which are great. I'm an external processor in a lot of ways, where I have to get information out so I can see it, then I can actually do things with it. But what I am not is somebody who bitches and complains for no reason. My definition of bitching and is really complaining without looking for a solution, a strategy, or a way out. It's just complaining, it's negativity, which is different than venting. So venting is actually just externalizing it. Oh my God, I feel better, lighten the load, now I can move on. So a lot of times traditional therapy focuses on the stories, not getting to the root cause. We're all about getting to the root cause. Sometimes when people talk during the session, sometimes it can be a distraction without getting to the root cause. So we might gently guide them or directly guide them. Hey, I know you've been saying this. I know you said this 20 times now, like a message is received, just so you know that I know. But is this a problem for you? What do you want instead of that? Where does this come from? How long have you had this for? What have you done that doesn't work that if you did something different would work better now? So we're actually going to get to that root cause as long as we team up. A lot of times in traditional therapy, this is one of the biggest limitations or knocks for people who are looking for more alternative or more of an efficient strategy for them, a system for them to help them heal, upgrade, achieve, is putting labels on them. You know, I remember I had a label put on me in my early to mid 20s, well, early 20s, and I was one of the psychologists. I was having learning issues and I wanted to see if I could learn better differently, and I had a label of ADD put on me. Well, with my own research, it was a long struggle, I guess a treacherous path, or it was drudging through it, but I found out that not only was I didn't have ADD, it was a nutritional deficiency. My brain didn't work with all the sugar and chemicals and toxins that I had for 21 years of my life. So I started to eat organic and do cleanses. All of a sudden, my brain started working when I cleared out my system. And then B, I learned a little bit differently. Traditional school teaches more auditorily, and sometimes they'll show pictures. And the majority of people are either visual, like to see pictures, or kinesthetic, like to do it. I'm a kinesthetic learner. I got to do it in order for me to learn it. And the majority of school doesn't teach that way. Maybe in PE, physical education, but I found out the way through coaching how I learned completely changed my whole life. Now I teach people who have their PhDs in psychology or in other things. I work with a lot of different people. I help people help other people to get better, and it's all from this, what I've learned. So instead of putting labels on people, diagnosing them, people have enough labels if you ask me. We help remove the labels that people put on them. People allow other people to put on them. People have their parents put on them, or religion or school or other childhood friends from their past. So we want to remove those limiting labels, because once you are no longer your labels, what are you then? What will that do once these labels are no longer a problem for you? They're just completely gone at the unconscious level. And that would be kind of an amazing thing. Again, a lot of times traditional therapy will focus at the conscious mind. Of course, they can get into, I call it the unconscious mind. They might call it the subconscious mind. I think they're two different things. But we focus on the conscious and unconscious mind, subconscious mind, and higher consciousness. That's a huge difference. A lot of times, traditional therapy, there's different unconscious programs that they can work on, but you have to get in rapport with somebody at their unconscious mind before their unconscious mind opens up. Which I have two very important things to share with you in just a few minutes. Well, a lot of traditional therapy focuses on the false self or the ego. A lot of traditional therapy doesn't differentiate consciously the difference between the false self, the ego, and the true self is what I call the neo. It's the opposite. This was there before the ego came. No, you were not born with an ego. Nobody in the history of ever was ever born with an ego. Generally comes around the terrible twos. And yes, the ego can be dissolved, but it is a heck of a process that the ego will fight tooth and nail every way. But if you want to become better, if you want better results, you do need to do the deeper egoic work. You just do. Ego is not necessarily directly related to psychology. I would say it's more spiritual than psychological. But if you go deep enough into the psychology, you have to go into the spiritual. There's a place deep down in the unconscious where they both meet. So we focus more on the neo, the true self, the part of you that is whole, the part of you that is connected, the part of you that when you connect with it and you're experiencing it, there aren't really any problems. You're in God flow, you're in the flow, you're in the moment, so to speak. And then the biggest difference that I can tell you that I've seen, that I've experienced between traditional therapy is they only focus on the psychological world. there's actually 4 worlds a human being lives in. We live in a physical world, which is our physical body. You can touch it. There's a psychological world, which it does not exist in the physical world. Quick, point to your mind. Put your mind in my hands. Put your mind in your own hands. You can't do it. Show me when your thoughts. You can't do it. Your thoughts and your mind does not exist in the physical world. Your brain does. Your sound does. But the psychological world does not exist in the physical world. But they're interconnected. And then there is a spiritual world, which has to do with your emotions and your feelings. To me, that has nothing to do with the psychological world, but the psychological world can impact it. So can the physical world, but they're not necessarily, there's a difference, and that would make a lot more sense when you actually have an experience. But there's a physical world, psychological world, which is thoughts. There's spiritual world, which is the feelings, emotions, and then there's the financial world, which the financial world is more of the universal world, and we go a little bit deeper. So 25% of a total being as opposed to 100%. That's my experience. Of course, therapists can do things, but I really want to share these 2 things for you. When it comes to life coaches, you have to remember how valuable your life coach or IntraAwareness coach will be to you is directly related to the level of success they've had either professionally or personally achieved. I'm going to say that one more time. How valuable your life coach or IntraAwareness coach is, any coach will be to you, is directly measured and related to the level of success they've either professionally or personally achieved. So that's for a life coach. Now, for a therapist, your therapist or IntraAwareness coach can only guide you as deep within yourself as they've gone within themselves. Your therapist, psychologist, or IntraAwareness coach can only guide you, can only bring you to that level of depth within yourself that they've gone in with themselves. It doesn't work if a person's not working on themselves. That's why people don't go see people who aren't experts, because people that are making up stuff up, there's no results around them. So if you're looking to go really deep within yourselves, whether that's healing, whether that's spiritual, whether that's transformational or mastery, this is what we specialize in. This is what we offer in. Again, this does not fit all, but most. So we're going to keep going into it, and I really want you to think about in the past of what worked for you and what didn't work for you, why it didn't work for you, and what you need different to get different results.